Back in the early days of the game, I used to be primarily a drone boat pilot, and at the time I honestly believed that most of my endgame ships would be drone boats, but we all know what happened. I branched out to turrets, I branched out to lasers, and I basically stopped using drones altogether. Now, the Rattlesnake has been buffed. The drones became a lot more lethal on the ship, and up until recently, the Rattlesnake wasn't really one of my favorite ships, but now I might actually consider flying this thing. So let's take a quick look at the basic info, trade description, roll bonus, plus 475% large drone damage, plus 200% large drone effective hit points, advanced large drone operation bonus will give you plus 12% large drone damage, plus 10 km drone command range, advanced battleship command bonus will give you plus 12% missile torpedo kinetic damage, plus 12% missile torpedo thermal damage, and plus 4% shield resistance. The Rattlesnake is one of the tankiest battleships in the game. I think it's the second tankiest battleship, right after the Nightmare. The Nightmare is the tankiest, quickly followed by the Rock, and quickly followed by the Abaddon as the third and fourth place. So the Rattlesnake has 2 drones, 5 high slot, 3 medium slot, 7 low slot, 3 combat, and 3 engineering rigs. The primary tank on this thing is, of course, shield. Please don't armor tank the Rattlesnake, it's just not going to work well. The Rattlesnake has a pretty good capacitor. Overall, definitely should have a very good capacitor runtime for most of the time if you have a good build, and the rest of the stats are also very nice. This ship is not the fastest, but it is still surprisingly faster than a Balgorn, which, you know, the Balgorn is currently the slowest thing in the game, slowest battleship in the game. So, this build is one of the last builds that I had on this ship. Now, since this ship has a bonus on missiles, you can use torpedo launchers, you can use rapid missile launchers, you can use cruise missiles. In my case, I mostly prefer to use the rapid missile launchers, the large rapid missile launchers. Although for PvP, if I engage a battleship, then I would probably use torpedo launchers for the extra DPS. Now the drones on this thing are actually nasty, and it's a common thing. All of the Gurista pirate ships have nasty drones, and the stats have been, I feel like the stats have been improved. The 100 km command range is fantastic. Now the flight velocity is okay, and at the time, back a long time ago, I was actually really worried because the Rattlesnake drones, the large drones, are slow and they used to suffer against faster ships, and with the Ortus I used to hunt Rattlesnakes quite efficiently. Well, that's not really the case anymore, because the drones have been buffed, and with the right build, the Rattlesnake is a very scary ship. Now the first build here will have some very tasty rigs focused on maximum possible tank. I have increased the resistance and I have increased the shield volume, and the capacitor rigs, the engineering rigs, will be for capacitor, of course. 355,000 hit points, 97,000 in shield, and I'm actually sad that this did not hit 100,000 shield, but the stats are really nice. After all, you get a bonus on shield resistance, and you can expand on that if you like. Later on in this video, I will show you a cheaper build for this ship as well as a cheap PvP build. Now, as for the nanocores, you have a lot of nanocores, and you can basically pick whichever you like. Honestly, I would personally go with the illusionary ghost because of the visual effect, but again, in this case, I'll have no nanocore on this ship. So, let me undock and let me show you how it works, how the stats look. Now, I don't like to fly a battleship without an afterburner, and this build doesn't have a afterburner. It is a build that can be used in PvP as a bait chunk, can be used for a fleet, again as a bait chunk or a tank. It can be used for PvE in high sec. In low sec, not really, because, you know, in low sec you want to have speed and maneuverability a little bit, but you can, if you want, you can use this build in low sec. But again, be careful around pirates. There's going to be a lot of pirates that are going to be after rattlesnakes. Now the DPS is okay. I'm quite satisfied with the DPS. After all, with the drone bomb implant, that can skyrocket to about 5,000 with the current build, and 842,000 effective hit points when everything is active, which honestly is a pretty solid tank. Again, this is a brick tank chunk build that can be used for PvE, for PvP, for a fleet. It doesn't have speed, but this thing is extremely tanky. You can also swap the capacitor battery for a damage control, and you can add dual Nosferatus, and this will enhance the capacitor runtime. Now it's 21 minutes. This is without any general unit for the capacitor or the shield booster, basically just default stats without using a general unit. All the units have been removed, or I think I have units that are not going to be affecting the current build, because I think I have the units for armor tank currently installed, but yeah, they will not be affecting the Nosferatu or the boosters, because they are not the units for this current for the current modules. 922,000 hit points, nearly a million hit points without the damage control, 88, 91, 93 and 90% resistance. Very tanky. And you have the panic button, which gives you 2.7 million hit points. This is an active tank, by the way. And the damage control is mostly used as the panic button, and I can guarantee you almost 100% of the time you will not have to use the damage control in a 1v1 against anything, because this thing will just not die that easily against most ships. You have a very good tank, you have decent capacitor, and you have some decent DPS. Only a Balgon has the chance to kill most ships in a 1v1 scenario, but with the drone bombs the Balgon is basically toast. So yeah, that's how good this ship actually became, and I'll show you the PvP DPS build later on. I actually really like to do the DPS builds on these ships, because you can balance out the tank while having crazy DPS, especially with these crazy implants nowadays that just give you some magic DPS number that is probably going to be nerfed. Now let's take a look at the speed, 408.89 meters per second, which is about 30 meters per second faster than a Balgorn using the afterburner. Although the Balgorn will definitely not have the same tank. So yeah, the thing is still crazy tanky, but the capacity will be slightly reduced with afterburner. You can replace the hardener, the reactive hardener, for a capacitor battery. Now this will enhance the capacitor by a little bit, 8 minutes and 12 seconds, but you lose a little bit of tank. But again, you still have a lot of shield and a lot of resistance, so it can work really well. And you can do something like this with one scrambler and web, and the classic, the good old chunk. Now this build used to be meta a long time ago. The extenders used to be meta, and I know a lot of Rattlesnake pilots did prefer to go with a similar build to this. Sometimes they would fit a reactive instead of damage control, but sometimes the damage control actually would work better for a bait. And in this case, the bombard tactic is, the bombard tactic implant is actually the best way for this ship. The missile implant can work, but since your DPS will come out from the drones mostly, and since drone bombs are, as we all know, ridiculously strong right now, you don't want to miss out on, if you have the implant, you definitely don't want to miss out on the drone bombs. On the Rattlesnake, you will definitely enjoy using them. If you don't have the implant, don't worry, you don't have to have the implant in order to have fun with this ship. This ship works really well without implants, as I was using the ship a long time ago. It's basically working the same way, even without the implants. So 135,000 in shield. Yeah, I'll get some pretty crazy numbers on the tank with this one, and these are not even the 4P70 rigs that I have on my Revelation. These are the 4P60 rigs. So you can push the tank technically a little bit higher, but the overall effect is not going to be that much noticeable. But again, it's going to be producing some hilarious numbers as you're about to see. Okay, adaptives on. 1.16 million hit points, 87, 91, 92 and 87% resistance. This is without the damage control. A very, 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 very tanky little boat. And with the damage control, you get a carrier. Well, imagine my shock. Exactly what I expected. 3.4 million hit points, 96, 97, 97 and 96% resistance. Yeah, I love to build chocks. I love to build brick tanks. That's, I think, obvious. And this can technically be a very good bait ship. It's definitely not going to die, that's for sure. This thing will last, and yeah, I'm not really worried about dying if I fly a ship with this build, with this tank. Excellent bait, excellent bait. Now, the cheaper option is with one anti-kinetic, anti-thermal and anti-EM reinforcer, and this will give you solid resistances, but unfortunately with this build I lost about 28,000 shield volume, but still I have 110,000 in shield, so that's still a pretty good number, and I should be able to get some pretty mad numbers even with this cheaper build, with the cheaper option. Doesn't have to be 4P60 integrations. You can go with a cheaper option. It would still have the same effect with just a little bit lower numbers, but with the integrations you can basically add everything you need into the ship. In this case, it has 863,000 hit points, 85, 89, 91 and 87%, a little bit lower. And with the damage control, 2.5 million use, so you still have a lot of tank, even with the cheaper option. Well, I guess the ISK difference is definitely going to be worth it. When I say worth it for the cheaper option, definitely much more efficient for the cheaper option, but again, if you have ISK and if you want to create something crazy and insane, then the 4P60 integration setup is definitely the way to go. But again, don't have to be integration rigs. This build, the cheaper build, also works really, really well. And now, on to one of my personal favorite builds, the DPS builds. So, triple drone speed augmenters for maximum possible drone performance. And, well, with this build I have quad Nestron drone damage amplifiers, one adaptive field, one damage control and a micro warp drive. Now the fun thing with this ship is it has 7 low slots. So usually I have 3 damage mods or 4 damage mods and basically no tank. This ship can have some tank, a damage control and a micro warp drive while having 4 damage mods. And the general unit layout is going to be for maximum possible DPS. For PvP, I recommend that if you have the implant on level 30, that you go for the upper attribute so that you have the full damage effect. And now you get 300% extra bonus on the on the drone damage, on the drone DPS. 300% extra alpha, 300% extra DPS, which in return means some crazy DPS. Now, the catch with the drumums, it doesn't show in the fitting window. You basically have to calculate the DPS, and well, 2,800 DPS currently called. With the drumums, that's 2,126 times 3 or times 200%. And well, it's, what is my calculator doing? My brain is not working properly today. About 6,000 DPS, and well, that will skyrocket as you start clicking on the drone damage amplifiers. Now it's 4,096, and with the last one, the DPS is 4,267, which is, you know, pretty good. 10,674 DPS comes out of the drones when you activate all drone damage amplifiers and when you use the drone bombs, which is absolutely insane. Yeah, this thing will shred a Balgon for sure. This thing will shred most things, most battleships and most mission runners. While also having decent speed, it's still faster than a Balgon with a micro drive, which is kinda hilarious. And speed on the drones, 12 kilometers per second. Yeah, you can chase down frigates. If you ever get tackled, you can chase down frigates with this thing. You have 100 kilometer range with the drones, and they can go 12 kilometers per second. And with the damage control, 853,000 hit points, 73,000 in shield, and some pretty solid shield resistances. You know, I actually really like to build ships like this, in this way. I started to use the Macarial in such a way, and I still do it, and I'm pretty happy with the Macarial's performance so far. And you can apply the same thing to basically the same build to most of the battleships. Now, I know that a lot of you guys will not have the level 45 attribute for the drones, and thankfully you can add the supervision drone modules. They basically increase the speed of your drones, so you can basically use multiple of these modules to improve the base velocity on the drones. 3.8 kilometers per second with 2 of them active, and I still have some pretty scary DPS with drones, with the drone bombs, while having drone speed as well. Also one option to go with if you are worried about the drone speed lacking, which, you know, is a valid option. It's a valid worry, because I know that the large drones can be slow and a good cruiser or a frigate can easily avoid them. So let's see at the DPS. 5,600 cold DPS with drones only, by the way. And when everything is active, I'll be calculating the DPS with drones. So it's about 8,121 drone DPS, and you also add that 704 DPS from the missiles, and it's about 8,800 DPS, while having some ridiculously fast drones that go 10 kilometers per second without the drone implant, and with the drone implant they go 35 kilometers per second. So yeah, even without the implants, even without the attributes, you can get the large drones go quite fast, and 10 kilometers per second should be enough to catch a fast target. And again, you don't have to worry about the DPS. The drones hit, they apply the DPS really well. Of course, you have to set the orbit properly, but they do apply DPS, they do hit, and no frigate, no cruiser, no interceptor can tank 8,000 drone DPS. So you don't have to worry about those small things being annoying if you know what you're doing. And a build like this that has a bit more tank, triple adaptives, a damage control, dual drone damage amplifiers, and a Mac warp drive. Now this build is mostly for big ships, for battleships. Again, for battleships I would actually prefer to use torpedo launchers. They will give you another extra 1,000 DPS. So overall you can get about 15,000 DPS on the Rattlesnake. And I know a lot of you guys have the ship with, I would say, better equipment and with a better nanocore, and overall I know that a lot of you guys can get better numbers than I get over here, because some of you are probably specialized for the Rattlesnake, and with the recent buffs I think that your DPS will also go up quite a bit. And I'm pretty happy with this build as well, mostly because it's super tanky, and you have about the same 8,800 DPS with the drone bombs that unleash all that DPS within seconds, and most ships can take that damage. Imagine what a Stratios can do, for example, that can have about 70 or 60% of the Rattlesnake's DPS. And there's a build like this. Now this build is no PvP build, this is a high sec build. It has a large booster, an adaptive, a capacity battery, and quad drone damage amplifiers. I know a lot of you guys have 5 or 6 drone damage amplifiers, and I know a lot of guys use the sentry drones, which is a valid option. The Rattlesnake can be a excellent AFK ship. You can have crazy DPS with the sentry drones, but I personally don't really like to use sentry drones because they're, let's say, they haven't been coded that well, although that doesn't mean that they're bad. It just, you know, I don't prefer to use them, but the long-range sentry build on the Rattlesnake for high sec is amazing. A lot of my friends use it, and they are doing really well with it. They do get a lot of risk from AFK using the Rattlesnake with the sentry drone. So sentry drones with full DPS are a valid option. But I prefer a more active way of playing. I mostly like to, you know, watch the ship with all the effects active and things like that. I just enjoy playing the game for what it is. And close range brawl is probably my way to go with most of the ships. I do, however, enjoy sniping with some ships, usually at extreme distances, but the Rattlesnake can do both. Can do the snipe build, can also do a brawler build, can also do a mid-range build. Again, this thing is very interesting. And I know I used to roast my apologies, my voice just kinda died for a second. I know that I used to roast the ship a little bit, and I always hoped that the developers would actually listen to buff the ship, and I'm very happy that they actually listened. And they buffed the good old Rattlesnake, so that I can actually, and I think a lot of you guys can enjoy the ship a lot more now. If you were unaware, the Rattlesnake up until recently was actually one of the cheaper ships on the market. I think at one point it was like 900 million to buy a Rattlesnake, mostly because it was just classified as the worst ship in the game because of the situation of the drones and how the game was at the time. Now the price of the Rattlesnake is back up. Now the Rattlesnake kills are at 5-6 billion, which is I would say okay. It was hilarious when the Rattlesnake was like 1 billion, 1.1 billion, 2.5. I had like a 1 billion East Rattlesnake kill at one point. It was pretty hilarious. That was the lowest price that this ship ever had. But now I can see that the price of this ship will go up. And let me take a look at the market as of me recording the video here. In the background, of course, because I play the game on one phone and I play on the other account on the other phone, so on the tablet, my apologies. So I get clumsy sometimes with all the things going on, so my apologies for that. So let me go to the battleship, Rattlesnake. I should have bought one when it was cheap. I definitely should have bought one. 3.6 billion. Well, the price on this little ship definitely went up. 3.6 billion, yeah. Used to be 3 times cheaper. I wish I bought one when it was cheap. Now the price on this thing goes up. Macariel 2.6. Balgorn is probably 4.7. The Space Pan, yeah, let's not look at that. 11 billion, okay. Became cheaper. Nightmare 4.2, and the Vindicator is 3.3. Well, the price on this little ship definitely went up, and if you bought the ship while it was cheap, you made profit. If you are like me, who didn't buy the ship, well, I missed out. But it is what it is. I mean, it happens. I really did not expect to see this ship buffed to be really good, but yeah. I guess surprises do happen, and one of my friends actually told me to buy the Rattlesnake at the time, and I said that I will, but I forgot, so yeah. But yeah, in any case, if you have the ship, then you will definitely enjoy the boost in performance. If you like the ship for PvP, I think you will definitely love the drone bombs, although not really necessary to use the. I think I'm trying to, you know, figure out if, let's say, if I have the drone bombs, then I would probably go with the DPS build on the Rattlesnake. But if I don't have the drone bombs, then I would probably go and take advantage of the tank of this ship, because, you know, in a lot of cases, having a good tank is actually the better option than having just raw DPS. And there are ships in the game that can withstand a lot of short burst DPS from crazy implants. The Abaddon can, the Rock can, the Nightmare can, again the Rattlesnake can withstand a lot of DPS. There are ships that, you know, that are built for tanking, and these ships will definitely live through a good barrage of drone bombs or any other crazy implant like that. So in the case of these ships, it's recommended that you engage them, but I would say change build so that you also have tank, basically tank versus tank, because a super tank versus super DPS usually means that the super tank will win, because there isn't really much that you can do against someone that has like 97% resistance, and if they have a good build, then they will easily take the crazy DPS that your ship has, which is something that is good for the game, because it means that you can just DPS everything. Now, the reason why it's so easy to kill ships, it's because most players don't have a good build. I mean, I'm sorry to say it like the way it is, but most players unfortunately don't have a good build, and I do a lot of hunting. I mean, you guys know that I camp a lot, I hunt a lot, I participate in nullsec everywhere, and I usually show all the kills that we make. And I'm trying to be honest here, but you know, it's kind of trying to see if, you know, if it's really the the right way to go. But I think being honest is very important. Let's say out of 10 ships that we destroy, 6 have a hybrid tank. When I say hybrid tank, they use both shield and armor in their build, which is horrible. And 2 have a bad build and 2 have a good build. So 8 out of 10 ships that we kill right now, in the last, like, that we have killed in the last couple months, haven't had a good build. Those 2 ships that have a good build, they did give a good fight, and occasionally we do have a very good fight with some of the more well-built ships. For example, what was one of the last ships that had a good build? Actually, yeah, see the problem. Like, I'm trying to remember what was the last ship that had a good build. I think the Macario that got me to Hull had a good build. That player was pretty good. That player was quite chill as well. So good fight to him. The other Macario also had a good build that I also fought recently. And there have been that Nestor that we killed also had a good build. Well, had a CTA build, I think. And honestly, I don't remember any good build. Every build that I remember that I have seen recently was bad. So let me quickly go in the background here and just go and look at the kill log, because I don't remember any. Yeah, there is. Yep, there is just no. I'll just add some funny screenshots in the video here, because yeah, there is basically no good build in the recent. Actually, my apologies. The CTA builds that we have seen, they were actually really solid, but they were CTA builds, so yeah, it is to be expected. Well, I got a little bit carried away, but I really enjoyed flying the Rattlesnake. This thing is actually really good now, and I believe a lot of you guys will definitely enjoy the buff. Overall, the recent change and the performance of this ship definitely are going to make me consider to go and get a Rattlesnake, and I'll probably use it for PvP. I'll definitely see the difference between the Macario and the Rattlesnake in the same PvP scenario. No, the Macario has the advantage of being fast. It's basically a big cruiser, so that's one of the problems that I might face, and it only has like 3 medium slots, so I might be forced to use triple scrammers to combat stabs, but I'll definitely see what I do with this boat. Again, I'm very happy that the Rattlesnake became better. I'm very happy that a lot of you guys will be able to enjoy the ship in a much better way, and I'm very happy that the drones on this ship are much more lethal, because this ship is after all a faction battleship and it should be scary. So that will be it for the Rattlesnake. Definitely enjoyed flying this boat. If you are considering buying one, well, I would say give the ship a shot, give the ship a chance. It's definitely going to be a ship that will work well, especially after the patch and after the updates, and perhaps it will be buffed even more. So with that being said, if you guys would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.